This program is brought to you by UCKG.
Welcome to another fabulous episode of A Different Kind of Woman. A different kind of woman is a woman who knows herself. On today's show, The Age Gap, we'll discuss how we choose our partners and whether there's a perfect age gap between couples. Is there a reason why men date younger women or why women date younger men? Well, let's take a look at what's coming up next on the show. Next, we're going to play the red and green card game. At 4:15, find out what people on the streets of London think. At 4:25, see that some things age well in a vintage tweed run. And later, we'll be discussing why some people choose their partners with top transformational and dating coach Genevieve Zawada. Well, obviously, I'm not discussing this alone. Joining me in the studio today is the go-getter Gemma.
Hi,
she loves her adjective.
I love that one. Hi.
And the delectable Diane.
Hi.
Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
So now, today we're discussing age gap. And
right.
What would you consider a reasonable age gap between partners?
You know, I think it's quite different for men and women. As a woman, I would probably not date anybody who was more than 8 years older than me. Mm-hmm. I'd probably even say 6 to 7, like maximum, absolute max. I just think that women are a little bit more mature. So to go for someone a little bit older is fine. On the flip side, it's not always the case. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd say like 6 to 8 years max for me.
I'd say 10.
10.
And I have dated somebody that's older than me, yeah.
So you would consider 10 years older acceptable. Would you consider 10 years younger acceptable?
Not 10 years younger. Mm-hmm. A few years, because I think men are more immature, sorry. So I would say just a few years, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, and so we're going to play the red and green card game because we want to hear your opinions. Obviously, red is no for an answer. Green is yes for an answer. You can't be on the fence, and please justify your answers. Okay?
All right.
So first question. Do you think that women who date sugar daddies are looking for security?
Yes.
Women who date sugar daddies, are they looking for security? Do you think that?
Yeah.
Diane, answer please. No sitting on the fence.
I have to say, I would really like to sit on the fence here because when I was younger, a lot younger, I dated a really older guy.
Yeah.
But he wasn't my sugar daddy, and no.
Okay. So it's 2 against 1. I definitely think they're looking for security, but justify your answers.
You know, I think that they're looking for security, sometimes not emotional security, but, you know, especially if the person has money or something that they feel. I had a friend that dated someone who was 20 years older than her. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, like, what have you got in common? Like, what are you going to talk about? Like, you know, the music that you would talk about, he probably doesn't even know. And his music, you probably weren't even born yet. I remember having all these conversations and she was just like, oh yeah, but he's got a business and he's got this and, you know, I think financially I'll be better off. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, but what about the other components of a relationship? So I think, yeah, security. I often ask myself, if people, you know, when you see like people with older men, you think, oh, they've got money. Mm-hmm. If they didn't have the money, would you still be secure in that relationship? That would be my question.
Yeah, I said no because I'm quite an independent young lady, and I wasn't after his money.
Right.
It was a relationship, basically, that we had. So
did you
that's
feel that
why
he gave you more emotional security though, like almost like a father figure because he was
definitely
10 years
not.
older? Oh,
definitely
no?
not.
Okay.
No, no.
Mm-hmm. So the age difference didn't play a lot into providing security in that relationship.
No,
or that he was even more mature.
No, I think that we was. That's why I say like that 10 years gap, because I think we was literally on the same level.
Right. Okay.
You know, so that's why I say gave it a 10-year, because that was the kind of age gap that it was, and we was really on the same level.
All right. So do you think women who prefer to date younger men want to be in control? So if a woman does the opposite and dates a younger man, is it because they want to be in control in that relationship?
Now, my sister is married to a younger man, so I'm going to say no.
That's
yes.
You
say no. I'll stick with my yes then, just to be different, and I'll justify it.
So do you justify why you think they want?
So what was the question? That they want to be in control? Yes, I think I'm looking at the bigger picture. So an older woman dating a younger man, I think that she wants to be in control of her, for example, her aging process, because you know sometimes it's quite difficult to know that you could be losing it, right, as a woman. And you know, the fact that somebody younger could go after you still, it's like, you know, it's actually really flattering. So it does give you a certain, you know, level of confidence, I think. And you know, I think that some women, they feel a little bit more secure in that, like, you know, actually I am in control of my destiny, almost, like, you know, age hasn't got me yet, I'm not down and out, I've still got it. So I would say in that respect, I think also, not in all cases, some women can, if someone is younger and a bit more inexperienced, and they're the one driving the decisions, whether it be financial, emotional, whatever it could be, then they do feel like, actually, I've got a hold on this, because you're sort of guiding the man through life rather than him taking control. So I think, there is a certain level of control when you're dating someone younger.
Diane, why do you agree with me and why do you say no?
Say no. I'm just comparing my stepsister with her husband, their age difference. I don't think she feels like she needs to keep up with that, you know, she's getting over the hill or anything like that. But they're compatible, they're really compatible, they're very business determined, you know, they run their own business together, you know, she's a very independent young lady, but the two of them complement each other. You know, it's not that she wants to rule the roost, so to speak. Maybe she does, because you know, she's got a very positive personality, but I don't see that. I see it as it's a combined thing.
Yeah, I know. I disagree, because I think women in general don't want, you know, no woman wants to feel like they have a man that they can control. It's just what we look for in a relationship. You don't want a pushover, someone that you control. So I wouldn't think that wanting to control the guy is what drives them into the relationship. I think it may be that it makes them feel good about themselves to know that someone younger is still attracted to them. So it might be that it just, I think it's a confidence booster rather than wanting to be in control. And does your childhood, now third question, does your childhood have the power to ruin your relationships?
Without a doubt. Without an absolute doubt.
Definitely.
It does.
Yeah, well, we all, this is anonymous, we all agree.
I know.
But why do you think that is?
I think anything from the past, because when you were just saying about a woman dating a younger man, for instance, I was thinking, you know, I actually knew somebody who was with an older man and was quite controlling, and then she went the other way. And it was, again, leading her to security. So that was the reason why she made it. But she made that decision based on the past. So I think anything from the past, be it negative or positive, can have an impact. And, you know, there are studies out there to say that children who come from stable families and, you know, their parents are still together, they're likely to stick with their marriages. And children from broken homes will probably follow that pattern. So definitely what you see, the way that you deal with conflict, the way that you deal with arguments, a lot of that comes from your childhood and the way that you dealt with your parents, or the way that your parents dealt with each other. So I think it definitely has an impact, without a doubt.
Yeah, I can't really add much more to what than
Sorry.
what Gemma said. It does, it's your past, you know, it brings it to your present, to your future.
Yeah, most of what you bring to a relationship is learned behavior. It's what you've observed from what you were growing up, about the relationships that were surrounding you, be it between your mother and your father, if they were together, and you know, your mother and other people. So yeah, I think what you learned in the past definitely plays a role in how you proceed in relationships. But I think people, can never forget that you can always change your past. So I see that many people sometimes, I know this is just an opinion, but I'm always opinionated.
Yeah.
And I see that what happens most times is that people normally kind of resign themselves to that fact that, okay, I was raised by a single parent,
Right.
so therefore I'm raised to be independent. But you can always change
Right.
your past. You can always change the patterns that you've learned. You can learn new patterns, and that's what we need to bear in mind. Now,
Right.
a study shows that when people fill in online dating profiles, they always choose as a preference to have people who have an age gap of 15 years older than them, between 10 to 15 years older. But in reality, normally people settle for 3 to 4 years. Does that surprise you? So people prefer to have a partner who's a lot older, but when they actually, go and have an actual relationship, normally they never have a relationship with people who are very much older than them.
Well, I've actually filled in an online dating thingy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you.
Tell us more.
You
Daniel,
try and
close
spread
your
the
ears.
net. You try to spread the net as far as you possibly can. Because, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, I remember when I was looking for somebody, I would speak to friends, family, because you really just want to spread that net really wide. And it's like when you're looking for a job, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you kind of think, oh yeah, I will go to like Oxford when you live in London. I will do this. It's only when you're actually in it that you think, I don't really want to travel that far. Yeah. So I think people put that on there just to sort of see what comes up. But in reality, the people that you meet in your circles and with your friends, maybe they're not that much older, but you're trying to reach someone because you do think that actually I wouldn't quite mind, because I don't want to miss out on somebody just because age is a factor. Maybe you might see some other great competitors.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you want to keep your options
open,
more, right? You want to keep them to have more options.
Right.
So that makes sense. We're going to continue this discussion. We have a lot to say on this subject, but we're going to take a short break now. And before we go, let's hear what the people on the streets of London think.
What do you feel is the acceptable age gap when it comes to relationships?
I think it depends on the age of the people. If they're older, it can be quite a large gap, but if it's someone like a 16-year-old, then you needs to be a smaller gap.
Do you mean 16 and...
16 and maybe 20 is okay, but whereas where you could be 25 and 40, it's no problem, 45, whatever, doesn't make... I think you just got to be careful about the age if they're sort of a young age.
Well, I've had a fairly decent age gap up to about 13 years, so I reckon anything under 15's acceptable.
Depending on the age, starting from like say 20s onwards, say about 5, 6, 7 years, that's all right. But yeah.
Okay, so like if someone's 50 and someone's 55 or someone's 20 and 25, that's fine, but anything above that?
Yeah, I think it's a bit too much. Yeah. 5 years is being a bit generous. Like, usually it's best for the man to be older than the woman. It's just how it is naturally.
I don't know, maybe 20 years. About that, I don't know. I guess it depends on the relationship between the two people.
Do you feel like a man should be older than the woman, or like if someone's in there, depending on the age?
No, I think it doesn't matter who's the oldest. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. It depends on the relationship.
I think it matters less the older people are, and I think it's more to do with kind of life experiences than age maybe. So if someone's quite young, there's still quite a big experience gap if they're seeing someone who's maybe 30 and they're 16. Whereas as you get older, that experience gap gets smaller, so I think it's less important.
How do you feel about the terms cougar and sugar daddy?
I don't really have strong feelings to either of them. I guess it depends what tense they're being used in.
Well, I think they're often used as quite offensive terms. I don't think it's something that I would use.
They're fun, aren't they? They're fun. They're not something that I would be concerned about. It's just other people's problem, really, isn't it?
I think if you're a sugar daddy, you're a perv. That's it. It's as simple as that. You can't be so older than a woman to be called a sugar daddy. That's a bit. The questions could be asked, but at the same time, depending on the age as well.
When you hear the term sugar daddy, what kind of man comes to your mind?
An old man that just likes young women. yeah, and just spends his money.
Because I just think they are sort of shaming people, aren't they? For the woman, it's called you're a predator of males, and for the man, it's because you've got money and you can keep a younger woman. So no, I don't agree with either of them.
This program is brought to you by UCKG. This program is brought to you by UCKG.
So welcome back. On today's show, The Age Gap, we've been discussing what we believe regarding the age of our partners and others as well. So Gemma, you're a recently married woman.
Yeah.
Can't stop to congratulate you. And you were mentioning earlier about how influential our parents are on our relationships. Would you say that your parents, your mother, has influenced you? I mean, from what you're noting in your relationship with your husband now?
Yeah, definitely. I was just saying to Di that I see traits of my mother in me. It's like I've actually turned into my mother now that I'm married. And there were certain things that, you know, I'd say to her, oh, don't be so abrupt, or don't just make that decision. And now I'm in a relationship, I see myself doing the same thing. So it's kind of like you do what you learn. But something a little bit more deeper is, some people know this about me on DKW, like my relationships and my love life was probably one of the hardest things ever to conquer in my entire life, and I just felt it was really difficult. And there was one point where I thought, actually, I am never going to find the right person, and I am never going to be able to get married. And I think that is connected to the fact that my dad committed suicide when I was a baby, because I never thought that it mattered, because my mum tried really hard to be both mother and father to me. But the truth is, when you don't have a present parent, a present father, for me, I had no standard of what a man should treat me like. I had no standard of what a relationship would be like. Through a lot of my life, my mum was a single mother, and then I had a stepfather, and it just wasn't the same. And I kept having this thought in my head, oh, my father didn't love me enough to stick around, because he killed himself. It's not like he died from a sickness or even was murdered. He decided, actually, life's too hard, I'm going to kill myself. So I kind of grew up with that, and that was in the back of my mind, and I never realised it until I was in my teens. And I'd carry that through, and sometimes if boys would give me attention, I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's great. And it's only now that I'm older and that I was able to recognise it and deal with it, that I realised that sometimes male attention would mean so much to me. Not in a way that I'd be provocative or promiscuous, because my mum didn't instill that into me, but it was in a way that I really want to keep this relationship. I'd do anything so we wouldn't have an argument, so that we can keep it. Although it was kind of like, I don't want to lose this, because if I lose it, what am I going to do? And I never saw the value that I could bring to a relationship.
Go on.
I kind of agree with that. I had my dad up until a certain age. And people who know Caribbean parents, they're very strict. They talk a lot with their hands more than their mouth. And that's what was in my household. So that's the sort of kind of relationships I attracted in the past. It was those that spoke with their hands, you know. So it was a knock-on effect, like Gemma's saying, you know, and it was like, oh, they like me because they're showing, they're hitting me. Do you get what I mean? You know, it was...
But I mean, I relate as well completely, because I was raised by a single parent as well. My father died when I was about 4 months, so I never had the opportunity to know him and he to be part of my life. But and one of the things that I brought on into my marriage was being very, very independent. And like you, I didn't have any sort of standard or anything to kind of mirror upon in terms of relating with a man. So I treated my husband basically the same way that I treated my mom. I related to him the same way that I related to my mom, and he's not a mother figure at all.
Right.
So that caused a lot of confusion in the beginning. But like I said, that's one thing I want our viewers to always bear in the back of your mind, that you can change, you can unlearn or learn new behaviors, right? Because we see a lot of times people resign themselves to how they were raised. I was raised this way, I am this way, I have this instilled in me, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn new behaviors, because obviously you have, so much so that now you're married, you're happily married, so you were able to break over that barrier. So that people need to bear that in mind. And another thing now, that there's a theory that says that, you know, women during their pregnancy, it's a bit funny, but it kind of makes sense, that women during their pregnancy normally feel the need to be protected. So when women are pregnant, they look for protection. So basically, our female wires are wired to look for protection in a man, because that's kind of like looking at us as procreators. Right. So we look for that protection in a man. Do you think that's what leads to what that could be a contributing factor to women dating older men? Do older men provide more protection in a sense than younger men? What do you think? Yeah, I think they could do. You know, for me, at my age, I would never date a younger man, just because I feel that already I'm a bit more mature. Definitely. I just think I'd just be frustrated, you know. So I would, for me, I need somebody who they know where they're going and they're mature about it. So I think an older man, for me, I can see why there is an attraction, because sometimes you do want to sort of settle down and you're thinking ahead, like you're thinking kids and, you know, financial security, and someone younger is still like messing around with their friends and stuff, and you're just like, do you know what, we're not on the same wavelength. You know, so I definitely feel that if you have got somebody who is of that mindset, which is a bit more mature, that it can help the relationship. Just because women, a lot of the time, we do think ahead and plan ahead. Like, you know, even in the small day-to-day stuff, I see that even with my husband, like sometimes I'm already thinking about the holiday next year. And he's like, I've not even thought about Saturday. It's like, really? You know, so, you know, and that could get frustrating if it was in something a bit more meaningful. Yeah, definitely. You know?
I mean, my husband's 5 years older than me, and I think we're at the same level. Right. If he was 5 years younger, I just think it would I'd be pulling my hair out. Yeah, definitely. Dragging him along and stuff. And I mean, I know we're looking at it from the point of view of a woman, but I think let's look at gender roles in general. Would you think that men also want relationships where they could be the protective partner? Like, is it something that is important to men? I mean, you're all married. Is it something that is important to your husbands to be that, you know, I kind of think that they do, but I'm gonna let you answer the question, the answer for you. Kind of like they want to be that heroic figure, right? So that kind of influences how they choose partners, isn't it? Yeah, I think also for men, they've got this thing that, you know, especially in front of their peers, that they need to be seen to, like, they've got it together, like, you know. And I just feel that men don't want to be disrespected, and I think if you date someone who's younger, but you respect that you've dated someone who's younger, or you're married to someone younger, but you know, actually, he has his place and I have my own, and he earns his money, or whatever it could be. Because sometimes, you know, one partner, for example, could be doing better than another. But at the end of the day, if there's a mutual respect and if there's a mutual understanding that, you know, we're here right now, but I respect you anyway, I think then it can be okay. But I think if a man feels disrespected, whether the woman's older or younger, I think it's going to be an issue. Yeah. So how did you guys choose your husbands? What was it in them that kind of, you know, clicked and said he's the one? Yeah. What were the qualities that spoke the most to you? For me, it goes back to past experiences. He was totally different to my past experiences. You know, I cannot compare him to what was before, the change. You know, I totally changed. My mind thoughts changed. The way I looked at myself changed. The way he looked at me, you know, there was many aspects of why I chose him, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think as well, I had my list of what I wanted, and my list wasn't superficial like before. It was about, you know, does he want children or not? What are his values? Are they similar to mine? What's his opinion on family? Because family is really important to me. So I knew what was important to me. And when he because my husband, I knew him for 10 years before we actually started dating, and I never would have considered him because I just had in my head, he's so immature. And although he's older than me, in my head I thought he's so immature. And that's why people say sometimes that age.
So you were looking for maturity.
Yeah, I was looking for maturity. I was looking for someone who's ready to settle down in life and get on with stuff. I just thought, oh, he's so mature. And when I sat down with him and I realised, oh, actually, he's probably a bit more mature than I am. All right, sold.
And that was the deciding factor.
Exactly, yeah.
So we do need to go for a break. We're going to take a short break now. But before we go, our team went to see how some things get better with age in a vintage tweed run. Let's see how they got on.
Ted was shopping in Glasgow one day, sort of in early March or April, something along those lines, and he stumbled upon a really beautiful pair in a vintage shop of tweed +4s. And he's a very keen cyclist, and he sort of thought these would be absolutely amazing for cycling. You know, he's a very fashionable man. He's always been sort of very much into aesthetics, and had a real dislike for all of the lycra, day glow, normal cycling apparel. So he took them back to London, spoke to a few of his friends and sort of said, don't you think that tweed would be an excellent material to wear for cycling? And they all agreed. And 50 of them, one spring morning, went out all together, guerrilla style, and just cycled through the streets of London, just for a bit of fun, really. And it took off from there. People absolutely loved the idea, loved the spectacle and wanted to take part. It takes a lot of cycling through London. It takes working with the transport police and TfL and all of that kind of thing. But to be honest with you, it's a real pleasure. It's so much fun for us to put this on because people just love it so much and they really, really are very passionate about it. So it is a lot of work, and it's about 6 months worth of work with quite a few of us now working on it. But we are absolutely thrilled to do it because it's such a pleasure on the day to just see such a beautiful spectacle. I think what I love about any of these events where you have sort of one unifying thing that really brings people together is that in London, which in particular can be seen as quite a lonely, isolated place, you have a huge crowd of people who are so happy to be together, strangers hand in hand. Everyone is smiling, everyone is complimenting each other on what they're wearing, everyone is having just the most wonderful time, and it's a really wonderful, very inclusive atmosphere. And it makes me very proud because we have a lot of people coming from all over the world to take part in this tweed run, and it makes me really proud to think that that's the impression that they get of London and of Britain even, that it's just such a lovely, lovely, friendly, supportive atmosphere.
Well, I have two loves, cycling and tweed. I particularly love the old vintage bicycles, and I belong to the London cycling campaign, and it was through there that I heard about the tweed run, and I've been really enjoying volunteering today with the tea.
At the moment I've been volunteering for the tweed run. We were helping out Tea Vintage at Tavistock Place about 3-4 hours ago. And yeah, I mean, I love tea, I love everything which is vintage. I love, you know, I love the clothes and the, you know, the atmosphere. The atmosphere is so good.
We were here for the start, which was really good to see the range of characters and how people really dress for the event. And do something very British, which is good.
So a friend of mine just called me up and told me about it, and I love my vintage bikes, and I like hanging out and riding in the sunshine, and like vintage style, so sound like the perfect combination of everything I like to do.
Well, I read about it online, and as I'm visiting for a week, I decided why not dedicate half of my suitcase to costume.
It's just amazing just cycling through London, seeing the sights of London, being with people who just want to have fun in London. It's just an amazing place to be, so historic, and the clothes just represent that, so it's amazing.
This program is brought to you by UCKG. This program is brought to you by UCKG.
So welcome back on the show, and on today's show, The Age Gap, we've been discussing how we choose our partners. And to shed more light on this subject, we are joined by Genevieve Zawada, who was voted the world's #4 best dating coach in 2015. Welcome, Genevieve.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the recognition. Gemma is
Wow.
very excited
I'm
about
so
that
excited.
one.
I'm just gutted because if I'd known you a few years back, you might have been able to help me a lot quicker, you know. Oh well.
So how can someone become a qualified matchmaker then?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it. Some people don't even go for qualifications, but I qualified with the Matchmaking Institute, which is international. It's run from New York, and we've also got training here in London once a year. I'm now one of their trainers, which is great. So it's there's lots of things people do, but the most recognised one is the Matchmaking Institute.
And what sort of got you interested in the field?
Oh, crumbs. Years ago, I mean, I've been doing it for about 22 years.
Wow.
And originally I started putting friends together, and, you know, after about 8 marriages within a year, I thought, oh, something's quite good with this. I was working in recruitment, and my clients were asking me, well, you know, can you start finding me someone? And that just happened naturally. I started a supper club because I was running out of friends to matchmake. Pre the internet, so handing out leaflets and saying meet on such and such a day. And within a year it got to 1,000 people.
Wow.
Meeting every Thursday, different groups for supper. And I still run the Secret Supper as part of the business that I've got now. And it's great. It's a great way for people to sort of date face to face without having that added pressure of, do you really know who they are or don't you, with the internet.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So you've met loads of people, like you said. What are most people, from your experience, what are most people looking for in a partner?
Oh, well, you know, expectations play a really huge part. And it was interesting hearing what you said earlier on about parents and what that brings to the table, because more often than not, people come with other people's expectations. So when they come to see a matchmaker, they come with lists. There's these pre-organised lists, spoken to mother, spoken to grandparents, spoken to friends, and you sit down, and 9 times out of 10 I make them rip these lists up and say, what do you really want? What's really important? And apart from, he needs to be 6 foot and she needs to be a size 8 and he needs to look like George Clooney and earn a 6-figure salary and, you know, Jennifer Aniston lookalikes, that's all I'm going for. Once we've got through the unrealistic stuff, we then say, okay, I give them 3 deal breakers that they can have and no more. And that works really well because it makes the mind focus on exactly what really is important, which is down to values. Do you want children? Don't you want children? That's the most important thing. Now, when you're dating someone that perhaps you've met in a bar or online, as you were talking about earlier, it's not a question you ask. So, you know, it's really understanding what page of the book is somebody on. Where are they? What are they looking for? And what really do they need to have a fulfilling relationship? And 9 times out of 10, it isn't what they're looking for, and it isn't on that list that they come to me with.
And I find that very interesting because normally it's true, we do have long lists, but we don't take into consideration what we bring on the table. Is it something that you help your clients to kind of focus on? What do they have to offer? What is it that they're able to provide to a partner?
Oh, totally. The first thing we do is we look at ourselves, and you know, I've written books on this, where look in the mirror and ask other people as well, because sometimes we're not such a good judge of who we really are. So if you've got good friends and family, ask them, what can I bring to the table? What do I need to change? You know, we've all got bad habits. We've all got things that in a relationship are unhealthy. So it's really important that we understand who we are, who we really are, and what we have to offer in a relationship.
Oh, that's great. You answered my question, the expectations of, you know, what people really are looking for. So when you do your dinners, these secret dinners.
Yes, the secret suppers.
Secret suppers. I've heard about them. I've known a few people that's actually gone on a few of those. Maybe not your ones, but I do know. Usually they go really well, right?
Yes.
But what happens when they don't go really well? How do you...
Well, you know, sometimes things don't go well. And same with one-to-one dating. I mean, we do matchmaking, we do events, we do all sorts of different parties, big parties, small parties, and suppers, and they don't always go well. But sometimes people set themselves up to fail. You know, they'll go with great expectations that they're going to meet the man of their dreams tonight, or yes, the woman's going to be there that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, who's going to be the mother of my children. You know, you need to go to these things with a very open mind, a very open heart, and if something happens, wonderful. And it's often those that come to the events and come into matchmaking, you know, for one-to-one matchmaking, without huge expectations, but offering wonderful things about themselves. And you know, if you're natural and you be yourself, you will attract the right person.
Okay, so I've got a question. I've got a couple of friends, and they're still quite young and so on, but they're in their 30s. And they're finding it really difficult to find somebody.
Okay.
Is there something about, because we were talking about going for older men, women going for younger men and all that, so on. Is there something about women of a certain age that just makes it a little bit more difficult to find the right partner?
Absolutely. There's a number of things. There's that biological clock. Okay, when the biological clock is really ticking, women get desperate and they give off this air of desperation. And sometimes when you're giving off an air of desperation, you're frightening the men off big time. And it's the same for some men. Men have their biological clock as well. When they haven't had children and want to have children, they can come across as quite needy, quite wanting to, let's rush things. And the girls are like, whoa, I'm not in any hurry. So, you know, there's these two different elements that the minute pressure is put on and brought into the equation of dating and relationships, that can cause problems, definitely.
So is there a science behind dating and relationships? Because, you know, like for example, some people just, you know, they might not even be particularly good looking, but they seem to, like, everyone seems to be falling at their feet, and you kind of think, like, what is it? Is it confidence? Are they giving off some sort of hormones? And other people like myself, it's just so difficult to find the right person.
I think it is all about the power of attraction. You know, you give off what you attract, or you attract what you give off. So it is about what you are giving off. Very, very much so. And you know, when we were talking a little bit earlier about, you know, people who are very, very needy, more often than not, people will just step back and go, whoa, I'm not going anywhere near that person. So it really is, you need to, that's why I think, you know, working with a matchmaker, working with a dating coach, understanding who you are and what you have to offer. I work with some beautiful people, some very affluent people who've got lots of money, who've got everything that you think that they could have. Why haven't they got the partner? And they come to me and go, I don't understand it. My friends don't understand it. Why am I single? And then we sit down and we start unraveling some of the stuff, and you think, well, there we go. A lot of the things with women in particular who perhaps have really good jobs, they can scare guys off. You know, you were talking earlier about the man wanting to be the provider and the protector, and the woman perhaps not really understanding with that guy that he's not powerful enough, he's not strong enough. So there's all of these things that get into the mix, really.
I have a question. What do you think, because we were discussing age in our program and kind of the age gap, what would you deem an appropriate age gap between partners?
There's no appropriate age gap.
I wasn't expecting that answer.
I said it was, actually.
You were.
I was expecting you to say that.
There is no appropriate age gap. I'm married to a younger guy. Lots of people are married to older, younger. My aunt's got a husband who's 20 years younger. You know, there's 20 years younger. He doesn't know her age. We can't celebrate her birthdays or anything.
There's no like big 50 or big
He's not watching this show.
I know.
They're in France, it's fine. So I can say it.
Yeah.
But you know, but even when I look in my own family and I see the different age gaps, my French grandmother was married to someone much younger than her as well. And I think there's a lot of to do with genetics, and it's to do sometimes with, you know, if you look young, you feel young, you don't want to be saddled with someone who emotionally is in a different place. And I think it's all to do with emotionally where you are and where you sit. Are you a young, fun person, or are you more mature? Are you more traditional? So it really does depend on, you know, again, what page of the book you want and how you present yourself.
I've got a little burning question. And that you're talking about stuff inside, and you know, we hear that beauty comes from within and all of that stuff. So does looks really matter then, you know, from your experience, or are we so focused on the appearance that we're missing out on good partners?
Totally, totally. I loved the programme when they did Sexy Beasts, you know, when they dressed everybody up and people had to fall in love with the actual emotional person and who that person really was before they did the big reveal. And I thought that was really cleverly done, actually, because 9 times out of 10 people will like somebody, you know, and they will get to know somebody emotionally, and then it could be something about the look that just puts them off from taking it further, which is a real shame that looks do come into it. But we do attract things visually. Men are attracted to something often that's familiar, that's comfortable, and women, you know, it's the same for women. Women not so much. Men are far more visual than women are. Women want more qualities, and they can forgive things. And you know, we all change as we get older. You know, both figure-wise for a woman when you have children, which always makes me laugh when a man says, "Oh, I want a woman who's size 6 to 8," and you want children. Okay, so are you? I'm very realistic with them. Are you expecting her to stay a size 6 to 8 after she's had the children?
Exactly.
It doesn't always happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So we know that we do face this challenge of you know, relying a lot on physical attraction. So what advice can you give to our viewers to kind of be able to step over that? What is it that they need to do in order to push the physical attraction or the importance of physical attraction aside and focus on qualities? What do they do? How do they switch?
It's a really difficult one, because you are programmed the way that you're programmed, and you are attracted to people that you're attracted to. But there are 2 different schools of thought. There's lust. You know, you're attracted to someone from a lustful place rather than someone who's going to be there long term. So what you need to do, and this is what I do with my clients, is I say, okay, what are the qualities that you're looking for long term in a relationship? And focus on that. And really, how important is height? You know, if he's not 6'2", but he's 6'1", are you going to discount him? If she's a size 10 and not a size 8, are you going to discount her? And when you actually break it down to that level, you know, it becomes a bit more realistic, and it opens people's minds. People don't always go into dating with an open mind. And again, if you just narrow it down to 3 things that are really important to you, you will find that your dating pool opens up enormously. And that's really the best advice I can give to anybody.
Thank you so much. So there you go. Think long term, guys. Don't just think, you know, on what looks good for the moment. Think what you want. Think about what you want long term. Thank you so much, Genevieve, for this valuable information that you've shared with our viewers, and it was a pleasure having you on our show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go for a break, and after the break, we're going to continue with our topic, the age gap.
This program is brought to you by UCKG. This program is brought to you by UCKG.
So welcome back. Today we're discussing the age gap, and before the break we were speaking to Genevieve, who had quite a lot to share with us, right, ladies?
Yeah, it's really helpful.
It was really good.
Now, you know, some of the familiar terms that we have out there in terms of people who have a huge age gap between them and their partners are cougars and sugar daddies.
Right.
What do you think of terms like these? Are they glamorization or are they demeaning?
No, I think they can be quite derogatory, to be honest with you. Like a cougar, I wouldn't want to be called a cougar. It was interesting to hear from Genevieve because when she spoke about the sort of emotional age, I think that's definitely something to consider because, you know, even my sister, she's married somebody younger and you don't see it because he was actually brought up to be really responsible. He's like the first child, the first son, and he had to work from a really young age and so on. So I think your path in life as well can determine how mature you are rather than your age. So he's 2 years younger than her, 2 or 3 years younger, and you just don't see it at all because in some ways he is more mature, more responsible, just because of his background and his childhood.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and now apart from the stereotype that people with age gap relationships face, what do you think are other challenges that they would face having a big age gap in their relationship?
It's just, you know, it's like what I was trying to say to my friend really. You know, sometimes you won't always agree, like in terms of decision making, which happens in any relationship. But I think sometimes that person, like this is what I saw with my friend, they were at different places completely, you know, and because he was 20 years older, he wanted to have children. And she was like, no, I want to have my career, I want to have fun, I want to travel. So sometimes your priorities are completely different and that can bring a lot of frustration.
Yeah, I think it's what Genevieve was saying, that there is no age gap barrier. I think that was really good. I was really shocked with that. It's what you want. It's the questions that you need to ask yourself within that relationship, or if it's going to meet that relationship at that time. You know, like Gemma's saying, if he's 20 years older and he wants kids, and she must be like 19 or whatever. She might not want kids. That's not what she wants right now. So she needs to ask herself those questions. The age gap, learning from Genevieve today, doesn't actually make a difference.
Yeah, but I kind of disagree a little bit. No, I mean, it doesn't make a difference within the relationship, but I think it will bring challenges to the relationship. And one challenge that I can think of is fitting your two worlds together, because you may be more mature than your partner, I mean, more mature to fit in with your partner, but your friends may not be as mature as you are. So you may have friends that, you know, are at a different level in terms of their maturity. And so imagine socializing, for example. So if you have a 20-year-old who's dating a 40-year-old, let's say, or a 45-year-old, let's say. So she's got a bunch of 20s friends that are in their 20s, and he's got friends that are in their late 40s, maybe in their 50s as well. And you kind of, you know, have a dinner party at home. So there may be a clash in your worlds, and that in itself can be a challenge. So I do think there will be challenges. It may not be between the two of you, but I think meshing your two worlds together may be difficult. Yeah, may be difficult because, for example, a 20-year-old is still maybe in university, so you're kind of thinking about getting a job, and he's already at a different place in his life. So all of these things may not be deal breakers, but they will be challenges, and I think people need to know that they will face these challenges.
Also, like, you know, of course people could get sick at any age, but you know, the likelihood is that as you get older, so it's am I ready, if I'm say younger, am I ready to put up with those sorts of things? Or if the person already has children from a previous relationship, am I ready to take on the responsibility? And when you were talking, I was thinking about intentions, because if you do get with somebody because of what they have right now, sometimes they could lose that thing. And then all of a sudden, does that mean that your relationship is over because he's no longer your sugar daddy? Or you know, those are I think intentions are really, really important. And like Genevieve said, if emotionally you feel that you're compatible and you're doing this for the right reason, then great. But if you're doing it because I'm looking for a father figure and he's got money or he's got a business, or you know, she's reminds me of my mom or whatever, it's kind of like if the person loses that whatever you've gone for, it's like, will you have a relationship anymore?
Yeah, but I think that works for any relationship. If it's not, isn't it? If you're not looking at, you know what, I'm going to fight for this, this is the long term of what I want. If it's just like, what can I get for the time being here and now, it is going to fizzle out. It's not going to.
Yeah, very true.
Now, Genevieve mentioned something that's interesting, your 3 deal breakers. So what would you think are normal deal breakers in a relationship? What would you consider to be deal breakers in a relationship?
Not wanting the same things, definitely.
Right. But in terms of what, like let's be more specific. I mean, for me, there are some things that you may not want, similar things, but it will not be a deal breaker. It's like, okay, we're different in that way. You go for what you want, I go for. But what would be the things that, let's help our viewers identify the very things that would kind of break a relationship?
Well, on my first date, I asked my husband if he wanted children, because I thought, if you do and I don't, then, you know,
that's a deal
sayonara.
breaker.
Yeah, that's definitely a deal breaker,
That was
isn't it?
one for me. Also family as well, like, you know, I looked at if he was family orientated, because I am, even though I don't want children, I needed to see him fitting in with my family, and I was going to do likewise. And if he was sort of, you know, isolated, and I think that would have been a deal breaker for me, someone who was unsociable. I think as well, your vision has to be the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, you know, financially, or if you want to live in another country and travel, and I'm kind of like, no, I'm a homebody and I just don't want that. Like, there is no way that you guys can mesh your 2 lives together. If someone is like, you know, I want to move to Dubai and live there for, and you're like, well, no, my mum lives around the corner, I don't want to go.
I want to go save children in Africa. And it's like, no, I'm not leaving England to go live in Africa.
Exactly. I think your vision kind of has to be the same, because also about saving children in Africa, for example, if somebody's like, oh, they want to do that, and they feel like they've got a vocation in life, and you don't share that. Well, you know, one of you's going to hold each other back. If they want to save children in Africa, and you're like, well, actually, I want to be a high flyer in the Middle East or something, you just, sorry, that just doesn't. You both have to have the sort of same vision.
But that's where you go back to the three main questions, isn't it? If you're wanting to high fly and this one wants to go and save the world, it's not going to really.
And that's why it's important to know yourself. I learned that as well, because I think if you don't know yourself, then you don't know what questions to ask, and then you don't know the answers. And then he's like, oh, I want to go and save children. And you're like, oh, that's so cute. And then you get with the person and you're like, I don't fancy that. And then you change your mind. You know, it's so important to know yourself, because how will you be able to answer those questions when people ask you?
I mean, what you don't know is I was putting you guys in a test.
Oh, were you?
I was testing you guys, because I did ask Genevieve this question during, but our cameraman Andrea asked her the question.
That's a good idea.
Like, what are the 3 deal breakers? And she kind of gave most of the answers that you gave, Gemma. So qualified matchmaker in the making here. She mentioned having like the same vision in life, kind of having the same vision of where you want to go, your work ethics and things like that. And she mentioned deal breaker that having children, wanting children or not, could be a deal breaker. And one other thing that she mentioned that we didn't touch on was character traits. So you want to look at like someone's honesty and someone's you know, their trustworthiness and their character. So you want to be able to define what it is that you can accept, you can deem acceptable in terms of character failure, and the things that you wouldn't deal with. Like, I wouldn't deal with someone who's constantly lying to me, someone who cheats on me, things like that. So deal breakers in terms of character. That's interesting.
It's really interesting.
So you're ready to match your friends?
She's going to be good at that. She's going to be good at that.
Hold on the brakes. So this has been an interesting show. What sort of final words do you have for our viewers to kind of help them wrap their heads around what we've discussed today?
I think I will stick with knowing your value and knowing yourself. I think that's really, really important, because I think a relationship's only as good as the 2 people in it. And I just feel that if you're not in a good space, or you're not in a good place in your life, and you don't know yourself, or maybe you've got loads of baggage from the past, I think that, you know, perhaps it's about saying, actually, I'm not ready to make a good decision for a relationship right now. So maybe this is not the good time for me to have a relationship with anybody else but myself first. And then once I am in a good place, then I can start making good decisions. I can decide what I want. I'm not using like something that's happened in the past to catapult me into this relationship and, to not even think about it. But I think when you're in a good place and you value yourself, you value your singleness even, then you're like, you know what, actually, I want someone to compliment me. You're not going to look for someone like what Diane was saying, that's going to be aggressive and that's going to hurt you and so on. So I think it really starts with ourselves, to be honest, having a good relationship with ourselves.
Yeah, I think don't settle for second best. Don't the biological clock might be ticking over, or you might think that you need to do this now, so you accept something that you really actually don't want, and in the long run it's going to be a heartbreaker. So I think that you should listen to your mind. A lot of people say, oh, follow your heart, follow your heart. Your heart will get you in a lot of trouble. Follow your mind. If your mind's saying no, this guy's nice, but he's actually not really for me. Go with that. Go with that.
Yeah, I agree. You touched on what I was going to speak about, which is exactly that sometimes we get so wrapped up in the initial attraction, right? You kind of look at him, oh, he's so handsome. I mean, he makes me, I feel butterflies. And then you kind of let that emotion take over. And you forget to weigh the important things, to bring your mind into the picture and to sort of weigh what this person has to offer. And I think, like you're saying, between settling for second best, mostly if he doesn't meet your list, don't panic. Like if you have deal breakers and you see that, you spot that he has these deal breakers, or he's breaking one of, he has this quality that breaks the deal. Don't kind of think like many women do, I can fix him. You don't want to start a relationship, at a disadvantage where you have to start fixing someone, because then you're changing that person. So don't be afraid to step away. Don't be afraid to value yourself and say, this is a deal breaker for me and I'm going to step away from this relationship. And that's part of letting your head take control, because when your emotions take over, your emotions fill you with hope, which is not realistic, because you don't want to lose that well-being, that sensation, that good feeling that you have. You want to hold on to it so badly that you ignore logic, but logic should speak out the most. Love should be intelligent. Love is a matter of the head, not of the heart. So no, forget every song that you heard that told you to listen to your heart. Sorry, Roxanne, I love you, but forget the song that you've listened all your life. Listen to your heart, rather listen to your head. Now, we've said a lot on this show, you've heard from us, but now we want to hear from you. We want to hear your opinion. What is it that you have to say regarding this topic, regarding this show? Leave us your comments on Twitter, on Facebook, or you can email us at comments@dkw.me or help@dkw.me. And this is it for this show. So join us next week for another exciting episode of a different kind of woman. Difficult? No, different kind of woman. And until then, it's goodbye.
This program is brought to you by UCKG.